Alrighty, so let's talk about that new fantasy epic on Netflix starring Millie Bobby Brown called Damsel. I thought that this movie was fairly interesting from the point of the reason I watched it, which was a fantasy epic on Netflix starring Millie Bobby Brown. I did not watch any trailers for it. I didn't really read anything on it. I just sort of went in there blind. I knew a rough idea of what I was getting into, and then I watched the movie. And I gotta say, it's pretty interesting. So let's talk about it. So the story is that Millie Bobby Brown's character is a princess from this kingdom that is like kind of going bankrupt. They don't have resources. They have a harsh winters. They can't sustain the economic wealth of a kingdom until one day, the faraway, I guess more of like a lord's daughter rather than a princess, but the queen of this mighty like region from the High Kingdom comes in and asks for them to show up at the palace, and then she gets married to the prince. But the twist is that there is a secret reality where every so often they sacrifice 3 people to this dragon, so the dragon doesn't kill the king and queen and the princes of the kingdom. And so and it's all because of this convoluted story, but there is this method that they use to like trick the dragon into thinking that they are sacrificing the right people, their own bloodline, and it leads for an interesting twist on what I wasn't expecting, and that actually made the story more interesting, but its conclusion is a tad off. But the story, for what it is, the beginning was a little bland, but like when it actually got to the point of the story, it was pretty interesting, so I'll give it a hand grenade score. The visuals are actually probably the best part. I think what this movie was really missing was just really powerful and more constant score in the background, because I do feel like the score was just lacking at points. Like there are scenes where there should have been some score and they just didn't use anything, and it just was a result of Millie Bobby Brown like grunting and stuff, and like, okay, weird, but cinematics, the visuals were gorgeous, so I'll give it a hand grenade score. This movie I do think is fairly well directed. I just think that the plot wise, I think this movie is definitely split up in 2/3. I even checked when I was doing the math, which is kind of funny, but like the first act, if you will, is literally the first act. It should have been a lot shorter. I think that the second and third acts should have been longer. But it's really funny how the first act is the first third, the second act is the second third, and the third act is the final third, obviously. But, like, it shouldn't really work like that. The first act should be a little shorter, while the second act builds everything up, and then the third act be, like, maybe a little shorter. Maybe they did follow the rules properly, but I didn't like how they followed the rules, so I'm complaining about it. Directing is a Hot Pocket score. Acting, there isn't much to say. If this was a comedy movie, I think Millie Bobby Brown would be exceptional at it, because this movie was a lot of just physical action and more so like comedy. It would have worked better in a comedic sense rather than a more like epic fantasy sense. If this was like a fantasy comedy, I think what they decided to do with it was a little more interesting, and they could have probably made a better movie. But it was all right. Nothing too special, so Hot Pocket score. But yeah, expectations and experience, I enjoyed it. It was a fun watch, but it was nothing that I'm going to seek out to rewatch. I'll probably rewatch it again like years from now when I'm like, Damsel, did I ever watch that? And then I'll rewatch and I'll be like, oh yeah, I did. But yeah, this is a certified Hot Pocket movie. But yeah, if you enjoyed, leave a like, comment down below if you've checked it out or not, and subscribe if you haven't already. And other than that, I'll leave you guys to it.